Alrighty. Good morning, everybody. Genesis chapter 11, if you are following along at home. Hey Seth, hey DC, send me an invite, I'll bring you up. Thank you so much. So we're gonna be talking about the Tower of Babel today. If you are one of my friendlies and you wanna come up, please send me an invite. You know the drill. And oh, yay! Thank you, Godless. Okay, let me change my little thing here to this. Alrighty.
Godless raid.
All right. Judith, are you a believer or non-believer? We only do non-believers on Bible Study Day. We're going to be talking about the Tower of Babel today, DC.
I know, I'm so excited. Are you excited about it?
I am kind of excited. I actually heard something in Thinkers Live today that was a really good point about this story. So I'm really excited about it.
Ooh, I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
I'm not excited about the genealogy that ends the chapter.
No.
As we know, I'm really good at butchering the Greek. So that's not going to be as fun. But yeah, I'm excited to go over the story of the Tower of Babel.
Sorry, I declined. I wanted my spot.
Oh, that's okay. You can have your spot. I think it's so funny how everybody has their spot. I'm one of those people who's like, wherever, I don't care. I'm never in the same spot twice.
I'm just happy to be up here.
Thank you for all the likes. Thank you for being here this morning. If you are a friendly and you want to join the panel, please feel free to send me a guest request. If you are a believer in the God of the Bible or, the Christian God, we don't do that on Bible Study Day because we're here to talk about the historicity of the Bible and the text. We are not going to talk about theology per se. So I saw Rebel Rabbi jump in and I saw a hippie here. I'm trying to see if they want to come up and join us this morning. But now I'm not seeing everybody.
I'm going to share this to my Discord. Hold on, I'll be right back.
Alrighty. We'll get started in just 1 minute. You guys, if you're not there yet, get your Bibles out and let's go to Genesis chapter 11. That's where we're going to be starting. Okay. Oh. Okay, hippie.
Into it. Sweet pea beat me to it.
Hippie, you better be up here in 10 minutes. I'm telling you.
Yeah, Sweet Pea, I'm going to have to rename you Speedy Gonzalez.
Sweetie Gonzalez.
Sweetie Gonzalez. Oh, I will.
That was my ex-wife's nickname for me, Speedy Gonzalez.
Really?
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
You're so funny. Arriba. Andale. That's what he used to say in case you guys aren't old enough to know.
Right. Oh, yeah. I loved it. I loved old cartoons.
Me too.
Peppy the Skunk. Wasn't that his name?
Sweet Pea up there. What? Which one?
The skunk? The skunk that was like
Pepe
always
Le
following
Pew.
the cat. Yeah,
Pepe
Pepe
Le
Le
Pew.
Pew.
I have a cat that always pulls away like I'm Pepe Le Pew, and I always tell him, Tux, are you the girl who's being manhandled by Pepe Le Pew? Because he will not let me pick him up and hold him. He's like, get away from me.
It matches, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I'm like, oh, my Tux.
My cat's the same way. She likes me because I
Sharon-
leave her alone.
Oh, well, yeah, cats like when you leave them alone, that's for sure. Sharon, we all have different stories. A lot of us have our stories on our pages. If you want, you can go to my page and you will see one of my pinned posts explains to you why I deconstructed. But that's a conversation for a different day. Slowpoke Gonzalez. No, was that his like cousin or something biblical? Because they used to always have cousins in these cartoons that were like the opposite of them. Yeah, Pepe probably did get canceled because he was not a good kitty or not a good skunk. Thank you.
And that's why I
ice
never
creams.
think of him. He was a bad cartoon. I never think of that cartoon ever.
There was a lot of bad cartoons when I was growing up. They are not appropriate anymore.
Oh yeah, those right wing, I guess bigots. I want to call them. They would be lose their mind if Dexter's Laboratory was a big deal right now. Like if it was all science, like something like that. Super snowflakey on both sides.
Benny and I watched a bunch of Looney Tunes the other day. I like the Looney Tunes.
Me too. So fun. I love cartoons. It's such a nice break from like real world.
My favorite is the Tick. I freaking love the Tick. He's so dumb. I love him so much. Did you ever watch the Tick?
Yes, that's fringe. That's very fringe.
Oh my god, I freaking love the Tick.
That's like someone saying that their favorite. Well, I guess the Tick's a little bit better than Ren and Stimpy. I would say that's kind of like someone saying that Ren and Stimpy is their favorite cartoon.
Once
No, the
Nick
Tick is
comes
great.
back on, we'll get started. There's Nick. Okay, you guys, we're going to get started. And I want to point out before we get started how we're going to start with the Tower of Babel after we just finish a genealogy. And then after the Tower of Babel, we're going to get back to a genealogy. So I'm not saying that this story doesn't belong here and that somebody just shoved it in here, but I'm kind of saying that. I'm kind of saying that these people did not know how to write a cohesive book. Have you started to realize that?
So the Tower of Babel is kind of like a prelude introduction to Abraham being pushed into the narrative.
Yeah,
But
it is, but it's
they did a really crappy job of it though.
they do. It's like they didn't. I'm just saying they needed better editors. That's all I'm trying to point out. All right, we're gonna start with the first one here, and then we'll go from there. Oh, by the way, before we get into this story too, I just want to point out that in Genesis 10 that we just read, verse 20, there are different languages. Verse 20 says, these are the descendants of Ham by their families, their languages, their lands, and their nations. So, what? Why do they all speak the same language now? What happened to those languages?
That was their accents, Crystal. Duh.
Ah, okay. Now, the whole earth had one language and the same words. So, here we have a time in history where every single person can communicate, and they all can communicate with the same language, the same words, and it's like there's world peace. Who wouldn't love that? Maybe a war god? I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm just-
God.
And as they migrated from the east, they came upon a plain in the land. I didn't write down how to say this word. I'm going Shinar. Is that right? And settled there. So, the migration eastward represents a movement from the mountainous region of the Ararat area to a fertile plain in Shinar, which is Babylonia, showing a desire for a stable, productive location. Okay, that is my little note on it. But yeah, we're gonna find out that God does not like world peace and everybody being unified. And that was one thing I never thought of. Do you guys ever hear Christians say that all God wants to do is for us to all come together and be one, you know, like be united?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I think that this story, and many stories, say the exact opposite. But if any of them show the exact opposite, it's this story. What the hell? He does not want unification. He loves division. Good morning, Hanji.
Morning, everyone.
Auntie, my queen.
Hey.
Hey, hey.
And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. So, the use of bricks and tar instead of a traditional stones and mortar represents human ingenuity and the desire to build something enduring, reflecting their ambition and self-sufficiency. Why does he have a problem with this? So they're becoming more, more technologically advanced in their building and architecture, and providing something that will endure. And he hates this. I don't understand this. Any thoughts so far?
The cool thing is with their... Oh, go ahead, Nick. My bad.
Oh, no, it's okay. You got there first. Go ahead. You beat me.
I was just going to say it's cool that the mixture they used was common for the building, and it's actually waterproof and bonding. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. And they didn't have it before, apparently. And so, the ingenuity was really good. Just one moment while I address somebody in chat. Pluto, I don't know you. That's why you're not coming up. This is not this is not your live. I don't know if you see the name up there. The name says CrystalJae. This is my live. So I don't think I'm better than you. I don't even freaking know you. Okay. Anyway. Yeah. So what were you gonna say, Nick?
So honestly, when I read this, I honestly feel like he was threatened by people. I mean, if we look back to Genesis, really what makes a god? Well, having knowledge of good and evil, for one, for two, immortality. So in this instance, they were building a tower that was supposed to reach up, to God's throne or whatever. I think he saw it more as a threat.
I also have a feeling that he is upset that instead of building some kind of monument to him, they're just doing something to come together.
Right.
To improve themselves.
Yeah, because it says...
We're in chapter 11, verse 4, y'all.
Look, there are one people and they have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they'll do. Nothing that they propose to do now will be impossible for them. So that's it highlights that threat part. He was threatened by them.
Yeah.
Isn't it crazy how,
Definitely.
throughout history, everybody's like, this new technology is going to destroy us and it's going to make us closer to God, and we can't handle that as humans. And we could see this back in Genesis where it's like mortar and a special tar that's waterproof. It's like, we can't handle this as a society. We're becoming too advanced.
We're becoming too advanced for sure.
Honestly, I was going to say the first time I read that passage, because I'm on I think 25 of Genesis now. When I first read that, I'm like, wow, he's a douchebag. People were literally living in harmony, using one form of communication, and he's just like, I'm gonna fuck it up, and just completely destroys them and separates everyone. I just think that's so
Right.
messed up.
So let's read verse 4. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens, and let us make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we shall be scattered abroad upon the face of the whole earth." So first of all, as a young Christian, the very first time I heard this, I was probably a child, because it was probably something in Sunday school or something. But even as a child, I really clearly remember thinking, wow, that was a stupid plan. Like, why would you think you could build a building that like reaches all the way to the heavens? Like, that would be very unstable. It could be knocked over by wind or an earthquake. I lived in California, so of course I would think earthquake, but it just seemed really dumb to me that they were building this tower that would reach to the heavens.
Crystal, really quickly, Pluto's getting quite disgusting in comments. Can we give him a block?
Yeah, go right ahead. You guys, I trust.
Can a mod give him a block, please? Because he's getting quite.
Any of my mods in chat
Got
want to? Thank you, Hanji.
Perfect.
I was going to say too that it's not unusual for them at this period to think ziggurats, which is what this. I don't know. Am I saying that right, Hanji? Ziggurats. Ziggurats.
Mm-hmm.
They thought ziggurats could actually reach heaven, right? Like that was a concept.
Oh, really? Okay, so what is a ziggurat?
It's basically like a high plane, which is why they always assume that Mount Olympus was the seating of the gods, because it was so high and it was clouded by mist and clouds that we thought that it touched the heavens. That we could reach them that way. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the ziggurat,
I did not
it's
know
more
that.
of like a flattened pyramid, pretty much, as well.
Which is why you
Okay.
have the Incan temples, the Mayan temples, the pyramids of Giza, like all over. It's obviously our ancestors were really trying to connect with the gods.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
the only point I was trying to make is it's kind of weird when we look back, because I was thinking the same thing. Like the thing's going all the way to like the solar
Right.
system, But this is on the this is like the cosmetology or the cosmology. My bad, the cosmology
Yeah,
of
cosmetology.
yeah, right. It's the cosmology of heaven being above the clouds. Like the gods are above the clouds. They're in our physical realm, and you can reach them.
But you see, Andrew says essentially they were trying to cheat their way to heaven, but they weren't. They were just wanting to build a city and have a skyscraper, no different than we do today. So they never said, let's do this so we can get to heaven without actually doing anything. They don't say that at all. The Lord came down to see the city and the tower which mortals had built. Why did he have to come down? Like he couldn't. I thought
It's
he was
that failing
omnipresent.
omnipresence thing again, isn't it?
Yeah.
Hippie!
And then we went there and the gods weren't there, biblical says. Okay, and the Lord said, look, they are one people. And I hate that. Oh, he didn't say that. He says, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. Nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them. I never understood this as a child either. I thought, why would a loving God want me to not be able to do amazing things? Like, don't you, as a loving parent, want your children to accomplish all their dreams and goals and do better things than you have done? You know what I mean?
Can I just point out too that it says the Lord came down, and that suggests that he's not omnipresent. And
yeah, that's what we were just saying. Isn't that weird?
Yeah, and he also seems surprised that they're actually doing. He's like, "Oh my gosh! If men could put their minds together, they can seamlessly do anything they want. We've got to stop this."
So I have I'm not going to stay on too long. I'm probably going to go on mute, but I have an interesting juxtaposition that I don't think gets talked about a lot when you guys are talking about Mount Olympus and being in the heavens and stuff. I find it interesting that for the Greek gods and for, Canaanite gods, obviously Yahweh and stuff like that, he's up in the heavens. And the juxtaposition is the Celtic gods are actually underground. They're in the fairy mounds. So, I always kind of find that interesting. There's mountains in the UK. There's mountains in where the Celts settled. And it's just I wonder why that is. Like, I wonder why the Celts were like, no, they're underground. They're in the ground with us rather than on the mountain. I don't know. I never figured that out.
I don't know why the Celts did it, but I could tell you probably the narcissistic God of the Bible had to be above us.
Well, that's fair.
Yeah, there was a lot of Mother Earth, Father Sky sort of energy with the Celtic, pagan Celtic sort of stuff. It's all very nature-based, whereas the Abrahamic deity, whichever one you choose, is all very in your head and watching you and not involved in day-to-day other than judging you.
Yeah, that's gross.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. Oh, go ahead, Hanji.
Honestly, I was just gonna be a smartass and say, "In your head."
Yeah.
I love zombie. I was gonna say, in the Mesopotamian region, like for me, it makes sense that, especially for a warrior god, that they would be on like a really high ground, because that's that's like a really advantageous place for a warrior or for like you to be in a winning position. I don't know if that has some like connection with like maybe the Celts like viewed underground as safety, or like that's where their hierarchy would want to be, is underground. I'm not sure. But as a warrior god, you would think that would make sense, wanting like the most advantageous place.
Yeah, for sure. Hanji, you better say that out loud, that tiny tiny.
Oh, tiny, tiny, rawr. And I was going to say, Yahweh is basically like a teenager, just, I have the moral high ground.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, next he says, come let us go down and confuse their language there so that they will not understand one another's speech. So, who is us? I mean, I'm asking this for everybody. Like, I'm very sure that's the Divine Council.
It's
Am
the
I
Divine
wrong?
Council, 100%.
Yes.
Okay, and why is God so upset that they can all communicate and do something wonderful together? Again, we've been talking about this a little bit already, but like, I just don't understand. I still, no matter how many different ways we say it, he just seems like a jerk.
Yeah, well, he's still feeling a bit threatened, doesn't he?
I was going to say, especially when you consider the fact that if you don't interpret his book correctly, you're going to go down to the big ouch fire.
God also
Yeah.
relies on codependency. Everything has to be of him, for him, in his time, his will. Humans are not to do for themselves, because if humans do for themselves, then humans would realize that we are the gods.
Ever since...
Brian, oh, go ahead, hippie.
Sorry, no, I was going to say, ever since he was forced into a position of saying they have become like us, they know from good from evil, he's been feeling a bit insecure and threatened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Brian
divine jealousy.
Brian points out in chat, the biblical God only wanted mankind to be without knowledge and worship him endlessly. And I agree with that. I think that he didn't want us to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, because we would definitely be able to see who the real evil was in this
That's why
world.
Christians are so ignorant.
Yeah, he definitely did not want us to go, wait, now they know the difference, so I can't just flat out say I'm good and they're going to fall for it. They're going to actually know now. Biblical says it's Adonai addressing the council, which is what I thought. Hey, Keith, thanks for joining.
It seems like a setup because, again, like, if you confuse the language, then duh, people aren't going to understand your goddamn book when it gets written. So he's setting up people just to not understand it, and by default, because they don't understand it, they don't follow his rules correctly, going to hell. What a dick.
Yeah. And God, you know what? He could have just caused an earthquake, or, you know, like he could have just knocked that freaking little tower down. What on earth, you know? Like I don't know. The confusing of the languages just seemed like a little overkill. And besides, I don't believe the bullshit, because there was other languages in chapter 10.
It strikes me as a retrospective excuse to get out of the fact that there were many languages being spoken around the world, and their story didn't have that covered yet.
Mm-hmm.
So the Lord scattered them abroad from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Okay, here's the thing that I would like to point out about that verse. Like, they just say it, but they never tell you how he did it. What did he do? Just like, take a giant leaf blower and just start blowing people off into different areas of the world? How did he scoop them up and drop them off in different places around the world? How did he just scatter everybody?
I like the.
Oh, go ahead, Nick.
I was just gonna say I like the leaf blower idea. That sounds like.
Not only that, like, we know how sloppy Yahweh is because he's just a mess of a god. How do we know that when he scattered people, he didn't like accidentally like break up families? Like kids went one way, adults went the other way, or married couples were like, "Bye, never see you again."
I imagine them at the tower, and then halfway through it, they can't speak the same language, and then they look at each other and go, "You can't speak my language. You can't work at the same job."
Right, okay, and also, like, why would not speaking the same language stop us? We have been able to build entire systems of ingenuity and technology without being able to speak the same language. And this was before we had ways to translate using AI. This happened when we had nothing but learning each other's languages. I don't know if any of you know how to speak two languages. I speak very broken Spanish, and it's only broken now because I don't speak it on a daily basis like I did when my son was growing up. My son is Mexican American, and so we spoke both Spanish and English in the home when we were raising him, so he would be bilingual. And when you're learning another language, you just start by fully immersing yourself in the language and just speaking it. So when you first start speaking, your language is very broken. It is what it is. You make a lot of mistakes, but you still are able to communicate. When I got a divorce and my son was still a little boy, my husband, Doug, came into the picture, and he would watch my son for me while I would work sometimes. And he would call me at work because whenever Mario went to stay with his dad, they spoke only Spanish in the home. But when he would come back to us, he would speak English. But during the transitional period, he would sometimes still speak Spanish for a little while when he got back home because it was a little difficult for him to turn that on and off. And my husband, Doug, would call me and say, "I don't know what he's saying. I don't know what he's saying." And I'm like, he understands you. Just tell him to go point to what he's talking about or whatever. He's like, "Oh, yeah." So they learned how to communicate even without speaking the same language. So I don't
That's a
see
good
how.
point. Like, how did Yahweh prevent them from just building a second tower by like pointing to the sky, pointing to building supplies, and go, "Hmm?
Right?
That's how working at a chicken plant is. I worked at a chicken plant, and we cooed at each other. Hoo, hoo, hoo. And okay, that machine, they're pointing at it, they're making these noises, it needs to be checked, something's going on.
Exactly. The same happens in construction in California, in the restaurant industry. We learn how to communicate and work together. Listen, Christians, this is a non-believers Bible study, and so we don't have Christians up during this Bible study. But if you ever want to come back, I'll be doing a live tomorrow for a conversation.
Here's another one. Like, do we know how tall the Tower of Babel was? Like, in cubits or whatever the fuck they use?
I don't think we do. It doesn't say, at least in the verses I've read.
Okay, well...
It said reaches up to the heavens.
Wait.
It said reaches up to the heavens.
But
it
here's
says
the thing,
reaches
right?
up to the heavens, so...
But here's the thing, right? Since then, with modern technology, we have not only built bigger skyscrapers, we have gone into space!
Yes.
Where's Yahweh on that one? Did he just forget? Did he oversleep his nap and went, "Oh shit, they're in space now"?
It didn't stop us from building skyscrapers.
When I think of like this view of like how our solar system and everything's set up, how God's above heaven, like you do, like I remember of Jesus like ascending into heaven, and I'm like, is he still floating somewhere in the outer space? Like because he's just ascended up. He's somewhere in another galaxy by now. It's been 2,000 years. And so anyways, yeah, who knows? He's lost in space somewhere.
Yeah, but
Okay.
we're at chapter 11 now. How many times has Yahweh forgotten about Earth and kind of just like reappeared and gone, oh shit, yeah, there they are. I forgot about them. You know, he forgot
Right.
about
He
Noah floating
is.
around in a boat, and I mean, at this point,
He,
he forgot about Adam and Eve while they were talking to the
he
serpent.
needed a
Now
rainbow to
yeah,
remind
just to
him not to
remind
flood
himself.
us.
Yeah, now he's there. Oh, where are the humans? Oh shit, they're building a great big tower. So it stands to reason that at the minute he's in one of his forgetful phases and has been for
Or
maybe
like,
two and a half
how
thousand years.
funny would it be? How funny would it be if people on the International Space Station were just like looking out their window and all of a sudden just an old man in a white robe and a white beard floated by and they're just like, what the fuck?
You guys, do you all know Bert Wiseland?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Bert,
Me either.
am I correct in saying you're a rabbi?
It's correct. That's true.
Okay. Bert is a friend of Rebel Rabbis. That's how I met him. And I invited him to the Bible study this morning. When we say we only allow non-believers up here, Bert, it is not of the Jewish faith. It is of the Christian faith that we don't allow up here. So you're always welcome to my Bible study, okay?
Hell,
And
the
just to be
Jewish people
clear,
make
like-
fun of their stories more than we do. They some of the funniest shit I've heard was rabbis saying like, "What the fuck is with this text?"
Yeah.
So make sure you all follow Bert. Bert is amazing and very knowledgeable and highly recommended. Okay, let's go on to the
thank
next
you.
verse. The final is there. Not the final before I butcher all the names in front of Bert. Okay, so Bert,
Oh,
be
last
ready.
week we need to see your face, Bert, because last week we had Rabbi in here while she was reading these names, and it was hilarious.
my
I'll
Hebrew
turn it on.
pronunciation.
Yeah.
My Hebrew pronunciations are horrible. Okay, so here we go. Therefore, it was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth, and from there the Lord scattered them abroad over the face of all the earth. And again, I'd really love to know how he scattered them. I want to know, did he cradle them in his little hands and then just blow them? Like, you know what? Maybe he did like one of those little wishing weeds that you pull and go, and they just flew everywhere. All right, you guys.
Do you mind if
here-
I make? Do you mind if I make one comment just on verse 6 since I joined a little
You
late?
can make any comments on the previous verses you want, Bert.
Okay, so I read this story very differently than most people. First of all, I don't think it's like a historical story. I want to like preface that. Like I think that most of this stuff is not there's no word for history in Hebrew. That's kind of what I'll say. And what I'm reading is actually like reverse psychology, like God's reverse psychology is what I'm seeing here. Like imagine a parent saying to their child, you won't clean your room. You won't do it. In other words, you won't work together. You won't, like, if this is how they have begun to act, then nothing that they may propose to do will be out of their reach. Like, you won't work together. You won't figure out how to be good people. You won't do it. You're not going to do it. Almost like a challenge, so to speak.
Oh, okay. I did not look at it that way. I just felt like,
So the whole
felt
story
like
is God going, "Do it, you won't."
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
the way I read it.
because I was telling them as a child, I always felt like, what kind of a dad, because, you know, I always looked at God as a dad, especially as a child. I looked at him as a father figure, and I was like, wouldn't want me to accomplish everything great, you know? And to me, it just sounded like he was like, no, I don't want you to do this. I don't want you to make a big skyscraper. I don't want you to reach the heavens. I don't want you to reach for the stars. You know, that's the way I took it.
Yeah, this story
Okay.
used to piss me off to no end. Sorry, thank you.
So many Bible stories pissed me off to no end. Even as a child,
Fair enough.
I felt very angry. I was an angry little Crystal. Okay, you guys, here we go. You can all watch Bert's face now as I butcher these. I did write down some phonetic things, but I don't know if they're correct, okay? These are the descendants of Shem. When Shem was 100 years old, he became the father of Arpachshad. How bad was that?
Arpachshad, yeah.
Arpachshad? 2 years after the flood, and Shem...
Arpachshad, yeah.
Okay, Arpachshad.
Yeah, sorry. I won't
Arpachshad?
correct anymore if it's annoying.
No, I want to learn. I don't mind at all. Arpachshad 500 years and had other sons and daughters. You guys, daughters are mentioned. Not by name, but daughters are mentioned.
So
Okay,
progressive.
I know, we're mentioned because we're going to get mentioned in a little bit later here too. When Arpachshad had lived 35 years, he became the father of Selah.
Shalach.
Shalach. And Arpachshad lived after the birth of Shalach 403 years and had other sons and daughters. Then Shalach had lived 30 years. He became the father of Eber.
Yeah, Aver.
Eber. This is fun, you guys.
You'd rather choose a bear than a man in the woods.
Oh, that's a good way to remember it. And Shalach lived after the birth of Eber 403 years and had other sons and daughters. By the way, if anybody wants to talk about any of these verses or these people, please feel free to give me a break, okay? I'm just saying.
I just have one thing that I think is funny. And I know it comes down to just how people translated these names later. But how silly is it that we have these very, very Hebrewic names, or like where it's just so hard to pronounce, but they're all very beautiful sounding. And then all of a sudden, like in the New Testament, you get Mary and Joe. Like, what the fuck? What a downgrade.
What happened to DC? And Jason. There's no Jason. What the heck kind of... No, I'm saying that for Seth because Seth didn't know there was a Jason in the Bible. When Eber had lived 30... Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to ask if it's interesting what these names, like the roots of these names are. Like Aver is the same root as Ivri, or like Hebrew. Like he has the same name. Like his name is the same root as Hebrew. If that's interesting at all.
Oh, that's cool.
Or Shalach
That is.
literally means to be sent. Yeah, I'm just out of curiosity.
Oh, you
I'll
can
shut up.
share all of that with us. We did go over some of those in the last genealogy that I read, but I didn't make notes on those this time for some reason. Okay, when Eber had lived 34 years, he became the father of... Tell me, Bert, because I'm not going to tell you what I have. I have Peleg.
Peleg, yeah. Peleg.
Peleg.
Although peeing on his leg is way funnier, yeah.
And Eber lived after the birth of Peleg. Peleg or Peleg?
Peleg, yeah.
Peleg.
Yeah.
430 years and had other sons and daughters. Why can't I remember? Peleg had lived 30 years. He became the father of Reu.
Yeah.
Reu. And Peleg lived after the birth of Reu 209 years and had other sons and daughters. By the way, I just want to point out that in case you don't remember, back in Genesis 6:3, God said that people would stop living this long and live only about 120 years. So a little bit longer than he said was going to happen here, okay? When Reu had lived 32 years, he became the father of...
Srug.
Let me see what I have. Shrug?
Srug, yeah, Srug.
Serug. And Reu lived after the birth of Serug 207 years and had other sons and daughters. When Serug had lived 30 years, he became the father of Nahor. And Serug lived after the birth... Nahor. I got to do that thing, right? I need to learn.
It's a good opportunity
Nahor.
to clear your throat. Yeah, the guttural fricative. You're very, very good at it.
Okay, and Serug lived after the birth of Nahor 200 years and had other sons and daughters. When Nahor had lived 29 years, he became the father of Terah.
Perfect.
Okay, all right, I'm getting there. And Nahor lived after the birth of Terah. I didn't do it right. 19 years and had other sons and daughters. When Terah had lived 70 years, he became the father of Abram, Nahor, and Haran. Was that better? You guys.
I would say Avram, but yeah, nailed it.
Okay. Now, these are the descendants of Terah. Terah was the father of Abram, Nahor, and how did you say the last name? Haran?
Haran. Mm-hmm.
Haran. Okay. And Haran was the father of Lot. Haran died before his father Terah in the land of his birth. Is this just Ur?
Yeah, yeah, it's the Mesopotamian
Okay.
city. It's actually where we get our base 60 for time from.
Oh, okay. Of the Chaldeans, or is it Chaldeans? Is it Chaldeans,
Chaldeans, yeah.
or Chaldeans? Okay, Chaldeans.
Chaldeans, yeah.
Abram and Nahor took wives. The name of Abram's wife was Sarah.
Sarai, yeah.
Okay, Sarai. Okay, and the name of Nahor's wife was Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of Milcah and Iscah.
Milka, I barely know her.
Now, Sarai was barren. She had no child. You guys, we finally get a name for a woman in the Bible again, and it is to tell us that she is barren. And I have to say that this, again, is why I feel like a second-class citizen in the Bible, as a woman. I feel like, really, was that the only attribute about her? Was that the only thing we could mention about her, was that she was barren? And at this time, remember that they think that if a woman is barren, it is somehow her fault. It is a deficiency in her. Anybody else have any thoughts so far?
Can I also point out that the list of names and just how detailed they are, it reminds me of, like, if this was a book you had to read for a class, like, this would be one of the really hard questions that a really angry teacher would get you. Like, who was the son of this man? And they're just like, no, I don't remember.
Tracy, try one of the names for me. You guys shouldn't make me do all these names by myself. I should make you guys start reading these verses. Do the guttural, Tracy.
Where are we at? Nahor.
We're at 31.
Haran. Milcah. How am I doing?
You're doing great. I mean, not that I speak Hebrew, so what would I know? I'm not going to get a book.
Do you ever think that, like, somebody once believed that a cat could talk because he started saying Hebrew names by just going,
Okay, Terah took his son Abram and his grandson Lot, son of Haran, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and they went out together from Ur of the Chaldeans to go into the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. The days of Terah were 205 years, and Terah died in Haran. Now, if there are any other names you want to share with us, the meaning, Bert, that would be great, because I know that is why a lot of times why they put the genealogy in here is to let us know significance in their names.
Yeah, I don't necessarily have that many. I'll say this. These names are Babylonian names. These names are not Hebrew names necessarily. Avram means father of many. And so, like, the idea being that he is the father of many nations. And, like, these are people that are, in my opinion, these stories likely come very late in the writing of the Torah. The Torah was essentially codified during the Babylonian exile. So, let's just to put a timeline on it, like the King David story is around 1000 BCE, and the Babylonian exile is 586 BCE. So when you have these stories that are like, it's very hard to kind of map out the tapestry of when all these stories were written. But I do think it's important to note that even like quote unquote early in the Torah, there are these stories that are clearly from other traditions that are clearly interacting with much later other traditions from Babylon, from Mesopotamia, from Sumer and Ur and Uruk and all of that.
Why do you think they were given Babylonian names? Did it have something to do with the exile?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with that. I think that the reality is that there's no kind of like no culture can be so siloed that it's not interacting with other cultures. And so the Babylonian exile, I think, was one of the most crucial, critical moments for the development of Judaism and this tradition that we're like expounding here. And to me, it's kind of it's demonstrating like the movement from Babylon back to like this. The next chapter, I don't know if you're getting into that, but the next chapter is all about this kind of setting up this movement from the Tigris and Euphrates to the land of Israel, to the land of Canaan.
Yeah, we'll be doing that chapter next week, but we always talk about chapters before and after because you kind of can't not do that, to make things cohesive. DC, any thoughts?
Well, even the chapters. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, go right ahead, Bert.
Just let me know if I'm taking up too much space. I probably
You're
am,
not
but I
at
just
all.
like that. Okay, the chapters and verses are also like relatively arbitrary. I mean, they're not, but they are. Like they're developed by these people called the Masoretes. The Masoretic texts are basically what determines where the vowels are, where the verses are, where the chapters are. And Christians have changed some of those to meet their own priorities, their own kind of theological priorities in reading of the text.
What? Christian
Yeah.
doing that? Never.
Nick.
I was just Bert, how? Because I know that there's no vowels in Hebrew, from what I've understood, and that they don't have spaces between words. So how was
There are
it
spaces.
determined?
Yeah.
Oh, but
Yeah,
how was
so-
it determined what was said? Because it's like obviously it's an ancient language and very different, but like how can we be sure we got the right translation?
For sure. So first of all, like if you were to compare the text that you're reading in Hebrew, like if you were reading it in Hebrew and you were to compare it to, let's say, the Dead Sea Scrolls, Unalive Sea Scrolls. I'm sorry, I don't know what I'm doing here.
You can say that.
Okay. It feels so weird to say things like that.
It feels weirder when you start saying them in public. Hey, that
don't
guy has
know.
a pew-pew. It's embarrassing.
Ugh,
We are toddler teachers.
truly.
Yeah, continue.
Yeah, so if you were to compare the Torah today to the Qumran scrolls, you would find minimal changes in the text. In other words, it is copied verbatim year after year, century after century. And
That's incredible.
yeah, it is incredible. But to answer your question, like this is also a strong oral tradition from, probably, it's hard to say how many of these stories were actually included in the oral tradition, but like 1200 BCE is really where I put the beginning of all of this in a kind of cohesive sense. 1200 BCE to about 586 BCE or 550 BCE. It's really an oral tradition. None of it is actually really written down. Minimally is written down. But it's really only in the Babylonian exile that all of this is really codified and written down. Now, as far as the vowels go, Hebrew is an old language. And I'm sure the same is true as Sanskrit in the sense that things like for Hebrew, it's actually a really simplistic language in the sense that you have several verb forms that are applied to root letters. So you have these 3 or 4 root letters that make up a general meaning of a word. So, for example, katav means to write. And if I were to say michtav, which is a written thing, is a letter. Did you see how I'm kind of? And so, yeah, it's and so you have these very specific forms that are then superimposed on these root letters, and so parsing out the vowels actually becomes quite easy because it's really consistent. And then there are obviously exceptions to the rules, and when various languages interact with Hebrew, and there are cognates and that sort of thing, like that kind of gets jumbled. But I would say like Hebrew, especially biblical Hebrew, is pretty consistent with its parsing.
Like, it always did my head in a little bit because I don't know too many languages outside my own. I know a little bit of Japanese conversationally, and I'm eventually going to learn most of the language of the Celts when I can actually get to school for it. But it always did my head in, and I'm like, what? No vowels? What?
Well, so here, I don't know if I can.
Let me
Like
put you
there
on the
are
big
vowels.
screen.
Like, okay, I mean there are vowels that are written there, and there's actually two types of vowels here. Hold on. So you have there are these marks up here that are called trope marks because the Torah is actually a song that's sung, and then you have these vowels that are underneath that these little dots that essentially provide, and these trope marks are actually like punctuation that the way in which it's sung creates this kind of sentence structure, and that each verse is essentially like a paragraph.
Oh, that's so cool. That's kind of like a similar thing in Japanese, because I did take 2 years of Japanese, where they will have like a set of hiragana or even kanji, where like it's written out kind of similar to Hebrew, just lines and strokes. But if there's a little dash or even like a small circle above it, it changes how it sounds. So like that's how they get like vowel or sounds like ko instead of ko. Like they have a little on the thing of it to be like, this is actually this thing, not what you think it is.
And the same is true in Korean also. There are lines and dashes put around the structure of the characters that essentially become the vowels.
That's so cool. I love how that kind of carries over from like obviously Asian languages and then into Hebrew. Like, man, I think oh my god, like kind of blows my mind a little bit. Like,
I would say they're convergent. I don't think that they're from the same sort of system. I would say they're convergent.
I love the patterning of humans. Like, we have the ability to be like, these are these letters, but we need to make more mouth noises. So let's just add little to these letters. And they'll be like, yeah, more mouth noises.
It's awesome.
DC, any thoughts on today's study that you wanted to share?
Yeah, I think that this is, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Bert, but for me, this is actually jabbing at the Babylonians, and maybe this was already said and I missed it. Did I miss that part?
No.
Okay. So I feel like this is a jab at the Babylonians, that their work, the work that they were seeing being done was kind of futile. There was something I was watching, was something about they were constantly building a ziggurat that was constantly like falling down. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but anyways, this was like a comical piece that was being written like satire for the construction that was being built in the Babylonians. Yeah. So it's somewhat historical, even though it's not historically accurate.
So it's basically a dig saying you guys are shitty builders.
Yeah. Say even with all your technology and all of your, all of the stuff that you can do with your building, you can never finish a project.
I'm just imagining. I was gonna say, I'm just imagining Hebrews pointing at the Babylonians, going, ah.
You're also reminding me of like a certain type of myth that's pretty prevalent in Genesis, which is the etiological myth. Etiology is asking the question, how did something come to be without any sense of science or any like understanding? And so like for example, in the Garden of Eden story, like, why does the snake have no legs? Well, it's clearly because the snake asked Adam and Eve to eat this fruit from this tree. Or like, why does it hurt during childbirth? Clearly it's a punishment of some kind. Like, why does man have to toil in the fields, meaning humanity? But why do people have to work their whole lives? Well, clearly it's a punishment for this eating the fruit in the garden. I'm not saying that that's what I think. I'm just saying that that's kind of like the etiological structure, right? Like you think of other kinds of myths, like or even the rainbow is a good example of an etiology. Why is there a rainbow in the sky? That sort of thing. Yeah.
Yep. Hey,
Etiological
you
myth.
guys,
What would this be?
before we continue on,
sorry.
can I get 10,000 likes for this live? And can I get my gift goal? They're only 1 coin each. Also, if you wouldn't mind gifting some of the panel, they're amazing people, and I just appreciate them all being here. Go ahead, DC.
I was going to say, what do you think this was? If
Oh, yeah,
Rainbow was
why-
Noah.
Yeah. Why? Oh, well, the rainbow for Noah, I think, is something like, why? Well, because I think there probably was a huge flood at some point. Like, think of the myth of Gilgamesh, the story of Gilgamesh. Like, there's clearly some flood tradition. I'm not saying that it was a global flood that made penguins come up from the South Pole to get on this boat. Like, that's obviously ridiculous. But there's probably some flood at some point in the ancient Near East that affected these traditions. And so, like,
I guess what I'm asking is about the tower. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. Why do people speak all these different languages? Like, there's so many different regional languages, even at that time. And so the question is, like, why are there so many of these languages? Why are people fighting with each other? Why aren't people working together? And I think that's kind of what this myth is trying to solve for.
So it's just
Also, myth is not a
another
dirty
time where
word.
they're like trying to answer the questions of things that they couldn't, like where they hadn't figured it out historically or scientifically yet.
Yeah, there's no concern for science. Like, science is not a priority. History is not a priority. Like I said, the word for history in Hebrew is historia. Like, it's clearly a loan word. What they deal in is memory. Memory is the most important version of history, and there's no accountability or reason to be accurate with memory. It's for the purposes of espousing values and stories from generation to generation.
I like that, like, even the North have their explanation for the rainbow, because obviously ancient civilizations didn't know about light refraction, but, like, it's very similar. It's like, it's something from the gods. It's the Bifrost Bridge, where, like, the gods cross over and from Asgard to Midgard, and I'm like, oh, okay.
There is a story, and I don't know, to be honest with you, if it's from the Epic of Gilgamesh or which, I don't know, because I didn't read the whole Epic of Gilgamesh, I'm not going to lie. I read some of it, didn't read the whole thing. But where there's thank you guys for helping me reach my goal. That helps me overall be boosted in the algorithm whenever I go live, when I reach a gift goal. So I try to make them pretty easy to be reached. Thank you so much. Anyway, where they're building the tower because they want to get up high in case there's another flood. And that made a lot more sense to me. I was like, that kind of sounds like, it might make sense. There was a flood. They don't want to, have an issue again. They want to be able to get up as high as they can. So, Tracy, did you have any questions or thoughts on today's chapter?
It's less a thought on today's chapter and more a realization that it took us 5 full chapters to get through Noah and the Ark, but the breaking up of all of the civilizations on all of the earth took a third of chapter 11.
Yeah, they did break us up pretty fast. And again, how did he do it? What did he do to scatter us all over the earth? Where,
I mean, the whole point was, they're working together. Let's make sure they fight because they don't understand each other.
Oh, you guys, Rebel Rabbi's here. She missed all of the fun of me enunciating words and names. I invited her up. I don't know if she has time to come up or not, but I did invite her up. Hippie, what are your thoughts on chapter 11 today?
It's yet another mess, you know. Like I don't know, like for me, because I love the documentary hypothesis and working out what was written into what audience and why into what ends and whatever. I mean, you know, you got chapter 1 in here is quite clearly priestly to me, and then you got Yahweh's source right up to 5, and then it goes back to priestly. It's kind of choppy, but this one, bit like when we start with Noah, and it's definitely picking out from the Epic of Gilgamesh and whatever. It's like a mess. This one is again really messy. It's not like a whole chapter. I don't like the way it's numbered. I think 12 should have started at the descendants of Shem. And the bit about the tower should have been a standalone section for us to laugh at. I mean, pick apart, you know. But I do kind of see it. I'm always torn. I don't know if I think maybe it's because it is the Babylonian connection and knowing that a lot of the Torah was put together around the time of the exile. Is this to me? I'm always trying to work out. Is this something that they've taken from a Babylonian history and brought through, or is it like an older story and they've just edited bits of it? You know, is it one of the Yahweh? Was it one of the J source that's been edited by adding the Babylonian angle? Like, I don't know. I just see it as messy. I can't find the root in it. If you know what I mean.
People. I'm looking now, and it's. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Bert. No, go ahead.
Oh, I'm looking now, and people are saying like Yahwistic or pre. I hate saying that word, but pre-J source sort of thing, and likely during the Babylonian exile as a critique or and not apocalyptic, but certainly a critique of the Babylonians and their what have you. Like they're saying like five months. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Finish your thought. Go ahead.
Oh, just like somewhere between 600 BCE to like 800 BCE.
Gotcha. Biblical said he actually wrote out all the questions that would lead through Genesis 1 through 11. And then he also said there seems to be evidence of a catastrophic flood in ancient Sumer. I don't know if I'm saying that. And it bears mentioning theologically that the implications of the tower breaking the Noachian covenant. I can't pronounce words, you guys. You're killing me. Any thoughts on that, you guys? I just thought I'd read Biblical's comments because he always has great input.
I actually really wish Biblical was up here right now because I would actually love him to explain that last one, theologically implication of the tower breaking the Noachian covenant. That would be something of great interest to me to hear.
Your wish is my command.
Oh, hey,
See, I'm better than God.
I will say. I will say, because I gotta drop off soon, so this is gonna be my last comment. I just had a mini epiphany here that, like, we were talking about Bert. I don't remember what word you used, but it was the word to explain things without science.
Etiology.
Etiology, yeah. So I find it fascinating that, like, all religions have some form of etiology, right? We all have myths. Why is there thunder? Because Zeus or Thor is pissed off. But I find it fascinating, and I just had this mini epiphany. When we find out what actually causes thunder or what actually causes floods or what actually causes kind of stuff like that, pagans and Jews are like, oh, okay, we can adjust our belief systems and just be comfortable with the fact that these are myths or explanations of what these people thought. The Christians are like, no, this actually happened! It's like, it's so fascinating that they can't, like, adjust their thinking. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Yeah.
Well, because it depends on the historicity. Like Judaism, if the the flood didn't happen, or if the Exodus didn't happen, the values are what is foundationally important. Like it does not matter. Like,
right.
My favorite quote from Mark Twain is, "If it wasn't Moses who led the Israelites out of Egypt, it was another guy with the same name." Like, I just think that that like it's just so irrelevant whether these stories are historically true, because what's important is wrestling with the values that are in. Like, it is so easy for me to say that slavery is wrong. You know what I mean? Like, they were wrong then and it's wrong now, and it's important to like, to me, it's about discerning between right and wrong and the conversation that emerges out of that, and trying to figure out what is best for the most amount of people.
Yeah, and intellectual honesty. I think that's what a lot of people lack when they're in the Christian faith. But I gotta go. Good Bible
Thanks
study.
for being
I hope to
here,
catch the next
Lynx.
one. I will see you guys later.
Have a good day.
This is why I have no quarrels with Jews whatsoever, because the more I talk to more of them, the more I realize that they hit this on a more academic level like the rest of us do, where again there's that thing with the Christians who are taking this as 100% value, and they can't change the way they think on that. And it's like, I mean, for you to admit, like, saying slavery is wrong, I don't care what anybody says, but then a Christian will do so many backflips and mental gymnastics to be like, no, it's totally okay because it was back then. Like, it's wild, the difference between the two. But I also think that whole slavery bit is because it's deeply enrooted in white supremacy, but that's
Probably. Biblical, come up and explain you're up, but tell us about your last comment. I can't talk, you guys. I know
No,
we're
it's
talking.
fine, Crystal. So, and Bert can correct me on this, but it's always seemed to me that this was theologically, this is a story that went into the Noachian covenant, where God said to be fruitful and multiply and spread out all over the face of the earth, but instead they're doing the exact opposite. They're coming together and coming in to this one area as opposed to spreading out all over the earth.
okay.
Now, as Bert also...
Are you saying?
Oh, okay, go
Are you
ahead.
saying the Noahide? Are you saying like the Noahide covenant? Is that what you're talking
Yes. Yes.
about? Okay, just want to clarify. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that covenant, we're supposed to be fruitful, multiply, spread out all over the face of the earth. However, we're founding Babylon. Now, this was obviously also a polemic against Babylon. But it's also an ideology, as Bert was saying, which Genesis 1 through 11 is an ideology of how you get to Abraham. And these questions go backwards. So if you're asking, okay, where did Abraham come from? Okay, he came from the Chaldeans. Well, why did they speak different languages? Well, Tower of Babel. This is how you went from having Noah and his family, who obviously, probably, it's pretty safe to say they all spoke the same language and looked similar, how you have all these different races and different peoples all over the earth that are starting to come into Israel and into the lands of Canaan and look different and sound different and speak different languages and have different customs, but they all came from the same people. So this ideology is really explaining where everyone else came from.
You just made me think like it was probably a multicultural center. Like Babylon was probably a multicultural center where people were trading and interacting, and like it was probably a center. Yeah, a center. I said it already.
Oh yeah, exactly. And especially with when these stories would finally been starting to be written down, it would seem that trade was beginning in Israel and in Canaan. You were having trade with all of these different countries. You have all of these different ethnicities and races and beliefs coming in all at once. So you would have to explain, well, hey, wait, I thought we were the only people. We all come from Noah. So where did these guys come from?
Which makes sense because modern Iraq, I think it is, I'd have to look through my herbology notes, ended up for the longest time being the central hub for basically science learning and medical learning. So to say that the Tower of Babel was more like a hub, a trading, that actually makes a lot of sense.
You guys have the smartest friends. I love having you guys here. You teach me so much. It's crazy. I go blabbering to my husband when he gets home, and he's like, "What on earth are you talking about today?"
One day I'll get to be one of your smart friends. Right now I'm just a friend.
Yeah, right.
Biblical.
Anybody else? Hanji, do you have any questions or comments you wanted to make about today's chapter?
Aside from the fact that Yahweh is a douchebag and should have left human civilization alone, no, I'm just kidding. No, but I feel like had he not done what he had did, who knows how civilization would have played out without the interference. If we're talking biblically wise, everyone was able to communicate, everyone was able to work together. Why do that? Why did you do that? You just left them alone.
Yeah, I really
Leave those kids
I
alone.
don't know. Can you imagine you walk in and all of you, I have 3 kids. I cannot imagine if they were all sitting down and playing nice together and like doing like Legos together for me to come in and just be like, nah, I don't like this. You guys are all getting along too well. Let me separate you. All of you go to your own rooms.
It's like when the kids are too quiet. You know, when there's chaos in the house, the kids are fine.
Yeah.
But when there's silence, what are you doing?
Exactly.
Yeah, God's meddling is such like a human thing also. Like to me, like every time God is mentioned is a reflection of the society in which the God is kind of existing. And so like, in other words, like if a horse had a God, it would look like a horse, right? And so like to me, this is a reflection of the people of that time. Like in all of these cases, in every single God, in all of the, you know what I mean? Like God is a reflection of what is the priorities of the people.
No,
Right.
you're
I
right.
don't think that God made man in his image. I think man made God in their image.
Okay, so have you ever seen the Michelangelo Sistine Chapel, The Creation of Adam? Have you seen that painting?
Yes.
Where God is reaching out to. So it is within the hemisphere of a brain, and Michelangelo, I believe, did this intentionally. Give me 1 second while I pull this up. And the whole
I'll
idea is
enlarge you.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm just like.
No,
Let me
we
know if I'm
love
being
this.
so annoying.
We are such nerds. We love all this.
Oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So, and he was doing all kinds of like, autopsies and experiments on cadavers. So it's very clear to me that he was, I can even do it this way if that's easier.
That's crazy.
What's the commentary
That's
here, right? Like the commentary is that
insane.
it's all happening in your brain. You know what I mean? Like to me, that's by the way, a lot of my theology is acknowledging that that so much of this is an internal experience that is unique to me, and that I think humans essentially have evolved to experience this spirituality sort of thing as a byproduct of structurally integral elements of our evolution.
That honestly makes so much more sense
Right?
now.
That really does. That was very cool. Thank you so much for sharing that. Biblical. what do
Holy
you got?
shit. Mind blown.
I do want to push back on that a little bit about us creating God in our image, and most specifically the horse. If the horse had a God, it would look like a horse. Of course. So what I would like to counter with that is my dog thinks I am its God because I give it food. On the other hand, my cat thinks it is God because I give it food.
And
Okay,
Scoot.
facts. I
That's
have,
great.
I have 6 cats, and all of them think they're the God too. By the way, I have 6, and they are all the God.
Oh, so you're just living in heaven and you didn't even tell us about that. Okay, I see how it is. I see how it is.
So I think Biblical's cat has brainwashed him because we all know the cat is the God, and she's tricking you into being a servant. Biblical, we might need an intervention.
Oh, girl, I got that. What is it? Toxoplasmosis. I know I got that because I love cats.
Oh, I do too.
I was
Love
going to
them.
say, put Sekhmet on the phone now.
Right?
In biblical, I guess my only response to that, like in the it would be like that's the context in which the cat and the dog live, and it's relative to their own experience, which is kind of still the I guess my underlining point is that people create their own experiences and their own realities every day.
Oh, without a
And
doubt.
it's about
That
getting
that
on-
was just
yeah.
me being funny.
I just love
Yeah,
how
that-
we went
I'm
from
sorry, I
Genesis
can't.
to philosophy in the flip of the dime. I fucking
And
love
it's
it.
always me. Yeah, and I'm sorry for that. See, this is why I say
biblical.
I'm just.
I love it.
This is why I say I'm Crystal's friend, but not one of her smart friends.
You've been spending too much time around Joe. The whole Phil bro's starting to come out.
No, it will not. It will never come out of me. You will never hear me, Phil Bro, unless I ask you what's your epistemology.
God damn it.
Never forget,
Okay,
hard
Nick.
solipsism is boring and gets you nowhere.
It's true.
Nick, do you have any
Question.
questions or final thoughts on chapter 11? Nick?
Oh, sorry, me. I
Yeah,
was
you're
sitting-
Nick.
I was sitting here picking lunch out of my damn teeth. I think we pretty much covered all the main talking points. Like it's a prelude to explain how Abraham comes into the picture, and it's also showing how humans started decreasing in age as God had dictated prior to that. The whole mocking of the whole mockery of Babylon, basically. Yeah, I think we covered that, all the major talking points. I mean, there's one note: diversity of languages and nations becomes a limiting condition of human existence. But we know today that we are totally capable of learning other people's languages, and even back then, you know, when the Greeks and the Romans started commingling with the Middle Easterners, you know, we very quickly see that we can adapt to other people's languages.
Absolutely.
Don't
Yeah.
mention the Romans. You'll just
Hey,
get Hanji
Justin.
mad.
Yeah, you'll get. Well, aside from me, you'll get the TikTok gods mad just mentioning the Romans. I will say this. Can we all agree that if any of us catch Yahweh, it's on site?
Yep.
Like, okay. Thank you.
It's on. It's on.
As Rabbi Hannah said, these hands are rated E for Elohim.
I love it.
Can I-
Justin, my baby.
Can
Okay.
I offer?
No, go
sorry,
right
I'll
ahead,
shut up.
Bert. Go ahead. Go ahead. Nope. Talk.
Well, just wanted to offer a couple commentary from this chapter from the Torah, a Woman's Commentary by Tamara Cohen-Eskenazi, who's one of my professors, and Andrea Weiss. Anyway, so I think first of all, she says that regarding the name Sarai for Avram's wife, says her name echoes the word for prince and could mean princess. Who reads the text as reflecting history, speculating that Sarah was indeed a princess as well as a priestess who continued to uphold a tradition that was both matriarchal, with women as leaders, and matrilineal, genealogy traced through the mother. Abraham claims in chapter 20, verse 12, that Sarah is his sister through a different wife of his father, which is through those sister wives stories. If she were his half-sister, however, one would expect the information to appear here, especially since, whatever, that's not important. But I thought the interesting thing about Sarah's name being an indication of her matriarchal kind of head of this society. And then regarding the verse about Sarai being a barren woman, obviously this is a theme that comes up throughout the issue of Genesis. And the comment here is fertility stands out as a paramount concern in biblical tales, starting with Genesis 1:28. Sarai's lack of children would become the pivot around which the stories from Genesis evolve. She will attribute her condition to God. However, the narrator nowhere suggests that God afflicted her with such a condition or that it is a stigma. Fertility of the barren woman becomes a symbol of God's special blessing, without implying necessarily the lack of fertility as a punishment.
Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
I need this book.
Look
Holy
on
shit.
the
Oh,
big
shit.
screen, Bert.
I got the
Bert, Bert, look on the screen right now. Can you see?
Yeah, no, that's why. Yeah, that's why I'm yeah.
That's awesome.
I finally have my library intact. I'm very proud. Da-da-da-da. Oh,
You guys are
can't see it
making me
yet.
grow my library every day. I don't have the funds to have as many books as you guys keep showing me.
Right?
Yeah, you're
Such
killing me.
teases, all of you.
I might have the answer to that soon enough, but we'll see.
I swear,
Okay.
Justin is about to be my book sugar daddy at this point. All this fucking knowledge.
Okay, listen, chat. I don't want you to leave yet. I'm going to say goodbye to each of my guests, and I like to let them plug themselves if they want to promote themselves. For some reason, when I say plug, people don't know what that means. I think they think it's a 420 plug or something. But anyway.
Ayo.
I'm just saying. Okay. Anyway, so stay in chat and let them promote themselves because they've been here today and they've been sharing great information with you. And we want to give them a chance to say goodbye. Final thoughts. DC, final thoughts and anything you want to promote.
I just think this is a fun story. I had a fun time listening to Bert. I'm glad you're here. Always biblical. It's a fun time. Hanji has great things to say. Follow Nick, of course. She's very smart. I appreciate all you guys. Hippie, of course, is amazing in his own right. I would say, yeah, today I started kind of a series going over the 2025 leaked videos, their training videos. And they are mad that we got them, that we have 14 hours to go through. So we already went through pretty much 1 hour today. So we're going to go through another one tomorrow. So if you are interested in that, join us in the morning. And me and Cece, I don't know if you know who Cece is, but we've been teaming up on this one today. And so hopefully we'll be doing that in the future. So thank you for having me.
All
up,
right, make sure
Crystal.
you drop DC a follow. And also, is your YouTube on your bio?
Yes, it should be. If not, I'll add it right after this.
Okay, make sure you subscribe to DC's YouTube. He has great content. Tracy, what you got for me?
Hi, my name's Tracy, and it was nice to be here. This passage made me scared of heights as a child, and I feel like that's just been reinforced. I had a really cool live last night, and I think that it's going to be like a pretty regular thing for me. I just posed like a silly question. I said, tell me how. And last night I learned how to find a vein and put an IV in someone. And I learned how to do wet and dry reverb when I'm recording my music. I learned how to cure sunburns. Like, I got to learn so many things from a really small handful of people. But we had a blast just like sitting around and hanging out. And my goal is to maybe like between topics, start playing you guys a song or two that I've written. So if you'd like to come hang out with us and just maybe Bible off for 20, 30 minutes at a time, we have a good time. And I hope
Go
you'll
on.
follow.
Wow. That sounds fun, Tracy. So make sure you're following Tracy. Also, you guys, I want to tell you a couple ways that you can support your creators, okay? These are any creators, okay? One is you want to, when you're in their lives, send them the team bracelets. You have to send them a team heart first, and then you can send them team bracelets. That is something that is, TikTok is using to boost people into the algorithm right now because because of some contests they're doing right now. But anyway, it helps boost people. The other thing is subscribe to their channel. If you watch it all the time and you're watching it more than you're watching your Hulu and your Netflix that you already pay for, by God, just, pay that $2.50 or $3, whatever it is, and subscribe to their channel because these people put a lot of time and effort into their lives. And we want to support them. We support the corporations. Let's support the small business owners. Okay. And another way you can help them is by tapping that screen when they're live and sharing out the live, but just hitting the share button and do copy link. You don't actually have to send it to somebody. Just doing that boost them in the algorithm. So when you can, if you're scrolling by and you see somebody's live, even if you only have a minute to go into that live and do a couple of those things and then move on with your day. Hippie, final thoughts on today?
Final thoughts. I love coming here. I know I don't get to come in all that often because I'm usually busy and stuff, but I love coming here because I'm just like surrounded by really clever, intellectual, well-read people, and I feel like everyone turns up with highlighters and notepads and they have this intellectual discussion. I feel like I come in with an axe and just butcher shit, but no, I really enjoy it and appreciate the conversation a lot.
I think we should all take a vote right now. What do you guys think if I have Hippie read all the verses when he's here? Because I'd rather hear his accent than my voice.
My dyslexia just wouldn't, like, you know.
Okay. All right. Hanji, your final thoughts and anything you'd like to promote?
Yahweh can suck it. Also, I enjoy the lives that we do. I enjoy the constant knowledge that we're bouncing back and forth. It almost reminds me of the pagan communities where we just sit down and compare our origin stories, and, you know, to have that in this community as well, along with learning this book, it really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I noticed it's a lot easier to read the Bible as like a fantasy novel versus something that is considered true, because, you know, it's easier to stomach. But I honestly support you guys so much, considering that you all came out of this faith. No matter what your reasons, you were able to see it for what it was and not let it influence you, or basically how they say, put the veil over your eyes anymore. So shout out to you guys for that. And I just have a link tree. I have a YouTube. I just don't post videos on it. I never really learned how to get around to that. But my lives, I haven't really had the energy now that I have a kindergartner. So I'm going to be more so in guest boxes than doing my own. But eventually I will start touching base on ancient Greek history, the mythologies around that area, and touch more on Egyptian mythology, because it's something that people know, but they don't, if that makes sense. And the parallels between them versus the Bible.
Very good. If you're not following Hanji, make sure you are following her. She does put out content, whether she goes live or not. She puts out fun content too. It is, you know, cosplay and I don't know, like about her pantheon, and I love it. It's something different. You're not going to see the same thing that you see on every deconstruction content or political content. It's a nice little break from all of that. Bert, any final thoughts for us today? And do you have anything you want to promote?
Yes. Oh, nothing to promote, but I'll say, like, when I teach my son, my son loves Torah stories as like bedtime stories, and I know that sounds weird, but I always ask him, like, Daniel, do you think that this is something that really happened, or do you think that this is a story that's meant to teach us a lesson? And then and he always answers correctly, and then we discuss what that lesson might be, and we decide whether it's teaching my dad would always say, like, there's no such thing as a bad example, but there are great examples of how not to act. And I think to Hanji's point, God does that in a lot of ways, demonstrates ways how not to behave in a plethora of ways. And I think that the discernment is huge. The other thing I'll say is, just as a concluding thought, like, what I really appreciate about this is that there are a huge range of ways to read the Torah, right? You can read it through a religious lens, but you can also read it as literature, or comparative literature, or you can see how the text is in conversation with itself. You can ask who wrote it. You can ask, what does the translation mean? You can ask with the mythology, the etiology, like all of that is just, to me, it's a lens into a people that lived thousands of years ago, and yes, there are lessons to derive from it for today, but it is clearly not written for us today. And so it's the conversation around the text that is for us today, not the text itself.
I really like that because I don't know if you read any of the chat, but we, especially at the beginning of the Bible study every week, we get all kinds of Christians who come in and start yelling at me that I am a non-believer and how dare I read their book. Like, who am I to read their book when I don't believe?
Well, ironically, it's not their book either, right?
Right?
Like
Right?
my favorite joke from Lewis Black. My favorite joke from Lewis Black is that when Christians misinterpret the Bible, he goes, "Not their fault, not their book."
Yep, exactly. But they do get mad at us for it. So anyway, I really like that because I actually I just believe in reading books. I know that's just a weird thing about me, right? So I have always encouraged my children to just read. If you're reading, you know, you are doing something for yourself, you are learning something. And why somebody wouldn't want me to read their religious book, even though it's not their book, is beyond me. I don't understand why somebody wouldn't want me to learn that, but they don't like it. Biblical, any final thoughts and anything you want to promote?
Me, big, like, smart, read book, goodly, study book, study, brave, smart book, bird law.
Oh, thank you, Biblical. See, my friends are smart. Nick, I want you to promote tonight for sure. Okay, so first of all, give us your final thoughts and then make sure you promote yourself and promote tonight's live.
Final thoughts. Gods, I don't know. So I've read the Bible twice now. I'm going through it third and fourth time simultaneously with two new Bibles, and you know, I'm looking at it as more of an academic standpoint now than just being the good little Christian girl reading her Bible. And it'll never cease to blow my mind, the things that I'm reading that I didn't catch on to before. You know, so I continue to look at it at an academic perspective, not things that actually happened, but, you know, most importantly, where it all went wrong and how a Middle Eastern belief system could take it over the world the way it did. It's flabbergasting. Promotional value. My gods, I've got so much going on right now. So tonight, and actually about 2.5 hours from now, I'm going to be going live. It's a pretty big topic, a pretty big discussion piece, and it's why does God hate women, and why be in a religion that would see women as slaves and property? This does deeply root within that supremacy feeling that a lot of Christians have, that they need to be the head of household, lord over women. Women are to be submissive, you know, breeders to their men. So it's a topic that doesn't get discussed a lot, and I'm really hoping that we get a lot of viewers tonight. Not for clout, but again, it's a discussion that needs to be talked about. I'm working on right now, of course, my research project for my book. I'm also working on, I'm going to get a power panel together to discuss who the devil actually is in the Bible, how he's not actually the prime evil, and most of the stuff that they talk about, Christians talk about Satan, is just made up fantasy. And Joe and I are working on a collab together to get another power panel up, and that is how deeply rooted white supremacy is within Christianity, and how it is the white man's religion. She actually sent me a book. I just got it today. It's called The Religion of Whiteness by Michael Emerson and Glenn Bracey II. It's how racism distorts Christian faith. So I honestly can't wait to dive into that book. And not only that, but it was and this is a dig at biblical there. It was done by the Oxford University Press, and everybody knows that I'm a total complete Oxford baby, suck at biblical. So, it's I'm really excited to be diving deep into that one, and yeah, that's what I got going on. But yeah, in about 2.5 hours, I'm going to be doing that live tonight, so.
That's awesome. I don't know if you saw Bert's comment, but he said if he could help with the Satan convo to let him know. I do want to talk about your topic tonight. I did a live yesterday that said, why doesn't God love women? Because I don't know how to write women. But anyway, it was supposed to say, why doesn't God love women? And it was a very, very it was a great live. It's a very important conversation to have, and so I hope you all tune in tonight. You're going to learn a lot, and I think that these conversations are the things we need to have in order to stop the misogyny, the patriarchy, the oppression of women, femicide, all those things. It's important. The more we talk about it, the more we realize how a lot of people's misogyny and hatred towards women are rooted in this book. So I'm really excited about the live, Nick, and I hope it goes well. I hope you all will be there. If you guys don't mind making sure to follow everybody on the panel. If you're not following me, follow me. And thank you all for being here. You guys are amazing. Thank you so much. My final thoughts are that I still think it was stupid for people to try to build a high rise to the heavens. And when I go to New York, I have to stay in my son's apartment, and we're on the 29th floor. It's pretty high up. By the way, when I was there, like a couple of trips ago, they had an earthquake in New York, and we were on the 29th floor, and only I knew what was going on being from California. I'm like, this is a freaking earthquake. Like, they were like, what's going on? Why is the building shaking? I'm like, that's called an earthquake, honey. So anyway, hope that doesn't happen again. That was not fun being that high up and having an earthquake. But anyway, I hope to see you guys around in panels today and doing your thing on TikTok. I love you all. I will be live tomorrow sometime around 8 or 9ish, depending on when my coffee hits, but Pacific time. And tomorrow I'm going to talk about whether God really wanted us to be united as a people, and what are his family values, because I don't really know what those are in the Bible. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow. I love you all. Have a great day.
Tomorrow, what time?
See you tomorrow at about 8 or 9 a.m. Pacific time. Depends on when I get my coffee. Okay, I'll send you an invite if it'll go through this time. They haven't been going through, but I'll try. All right, love you all. Bye.
Love you, Crystal.
Yes, thank you.